issue of non-Cleveland residents speaking at this event. It's at the council meeting. Our meetings are open. We discuss public comment in great detail before we invoked it, but I don't think any of us ever envisioned the fact that the majority speakers
Monday, October the 30th. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Griffin,
Here.
Bishop, Cantwell, Hairston,
Here.
Casey,
Present.
Valencia,
Present.
Santana, Spencer. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. I usually try to do guests first, and I think we do have a couple of guests. But Ms. Jimenez, could you let me know who we have as guests? Or do we know if we have any guests? All right, then I'll go in order. Dave Gilbert from Destination Cleveland. Okay. Which one is that? Okay, if you guys could come on up there. What's that number again?
Yeah, which one?
1192. 1192, 2023.
Is that film or sports?
That's
That's
sports.
Okay.
And then we'll do film next. I know Mr. Garvey's not in town. So who's representing Film Commission? You guys are? Okay. All right. All right, this is ordinance number 1192-2023 by council members Hairston and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission or its designee to provide financial assistance to organize and administer programs for marketing the city of Cleveland as a venue for sporting events and to actively market the public auditorium as a premier site for the hosting of major events. Mr. McNair, welcome to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am joined here today by Stephanie Filbert from our office, as well as Rachel Stentz-Bauer and David Gilbert from the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. The Greater Cleveland Sports Commission is a longtime partner of the City of Cleveland, and over the last 13 years, I believe they have attracted over 200 events to our city that has created over $800 million in economic impact. There's a really exciting lineup of events that are going to be upcoming, including this year's Women's Final Four, which is projected to have a $22 million economic impact all on its own. Again, I think that we can see their work on almost a daily basis with the people that are bringing in and around town. They have also worked tirelessly to help create an industry out of this and create programs that can help impact our youth and neighborhood. So with that, I will turn it over to David and his colleague so that they can tell you a little bit more.
Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Director, and thank you, Chairman and members of council. I was fortunate enough to see many of you a couple weeks ago, or I think last week at Council Caucus, just to give an update. What I would say is appreciate very much the longstanding partnership and support with the city. Critical, and not just financial, but so many things related to the work we do with the rec centers, the work we do and the support we get from police, traffic control, things where those types of things are not just needed, but critical for success. One thing I would point out, we're very proud of the record we've had, and we know that the events that we catalog and we talk about the effect of the direct spending are only events that would not have happened had our organization not been around. But I think also important that Cleveland has become one of the very top cities in the country at the attracting and hosting of major events. We just had a group in last week who from Japan, and they have a new, from their federal government, a new national group creating sports commissions around the country, and they picked Cleveland to come to talk to about using, it was recommended that they use Cleveland as a model for how they create sports commissions around their country. And we know that it's not easy. We have to continually, it's a very competitive industry, continue to have to stay ahead of our competitors, and our goal is to try and provide more services for those events than anyone else in the country. But at the end of the day, we're very proud of our success because we love the city, and we all feel very fortunate that we get to do something that helps to keep our city, helps dollars pump in, helps provide opportunities for youth through our programming, and in our world makes Cleveland an absolute national leader.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
Now, she's quiet today. She runs the show. when
Oh,
we're
believe
at
me,
the
not,
board
it's not,
meeting.
that's not normal.
When we're at the board meeting, she runs the show, so now she's quiet. Yeah, okay. No,
I give David some time.
that's great. All right, so just a couple of things before I go to any of my colleagues for questions. This city's made a decision a long time ago that sports was going to be a major economic generator. Is there something that we can do a better job as council to do to help the public understand why these sports venues and these sports events are critical? As you just mentioned, NCAA Women's Tournament Final Four is $22 million impact that's going to happen on the city of Cleveland. Minuscule amount of money for the investment that we're making that we're going to get a return on. How can we start to document that with even some of the things like the Cavs, the Guardians, the Browns, other things? Because the arguments that everybody try to make is that we're giving money to millionaires and not getting a return on our investment. How can we do a better job of council to really get that nailed down so that people could really understand how these venues and these places pay for themselves?
Thanks, Councilman. I think there's a couple thoughts on it. One, I think there's a lot of things we could provide to you that you could put in your newsletters and other things to help with that understanding. Certainly in our world of the events, we not every event, but many of the events that we host have components that either we provide or are free for city residents. So Women's Final Four is a great example. It's an expensive event. It's an expensive event, expensive ticket, and the vast majority of people who are in that arena are not from Cleveland. We like that, actually, because those are the dollars that people come in from all over the country and they spend their dollars here and support jobs. But there are lots of other events around the city that weekend that are free and open to the public. And so locals can really take part in some of those events, even if they can't get the expensive ticket, or when we have big events and we do a lot of our programming. So we can continue to make you all aware, and we could talk about what's the best form to do that. So if you have information, you can then share in your newsletters with your constituents. You know, the pro teams are a little bit of a different animal, but I think it's the same type of thing. I'm a believer in what sports can do for a community. So I say that up front, and there are some people who just don't like the idea of one public dollar going into sports facilities, and I understand that. It's the way professional sports works in our country, plain and simple. I do think what we can do is proactively, and we could try to work with you in how to do this, proactively look at the dollars that are invested by the public, how they are so much more, far and above matched with private dollars and what they bring into the community. At the end of the day, it's return. All these things I believe are they're return on investment, and you all have to make choices all the time. So certainly your constituents understanding the choices you make, that it's about this choice has a huge return on investment back to the city's general fund and back to investment of dollars, that if you invest $1 from the city, you get far more than $1 back that can be spent on roads and safety and all the things that you all spend on. I'd love to be able to spend a little more time with you to help you figure some of that out, and to the idea that we can help, we will.
And Mr. Gilbert, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I would love to work with you and Mr. McNair and the administration. Council has to be master translators. And we have to be able to break this down to the point to say, here is the taxpayer dollars, and here is the return on your investment for the taxpayer dollars. Because if we can't show a very tangible way that these folks are making an investment that's going to translate in more city services, that's going to translate into more streets getting paved, more potholes being filled, more workers, more police officers, more firefighters, EMS, the whole gambit, garbage collectors, then we're going to be fighting an uphill battle. Because I'm here to tell you there's people around this body who have heard the trickle-down economics for years and don't believe in it necessarily. But then there's also people that still need to be convinced. So I really hope that we can work with Mr. McNair to do a pedestrian kind of fact sheet on how and if these things, because I want to put how and if, because I'm not a macroeconomist either, but how and if these type of investments are really helping the city's bottom line. And I really hope that we could do a deep dive in that because I think, in my opinion, this city has made a decision to get involved in sports and make sports a major part of our economy a long time ago. So we got to do a better job of showing people on how they are benefiting from it. But I definitely know what you're doing, and that's good. The other thing that I want to ask, I think this is more associated with, and Mr. McNair, we can follow up and talk about that, because I do like your idea about maybe even doing a graphic or something that we could put in our newsletters and try to explain to people. But we can actually work on something like that with you and do some messaging, and our communications team can also talk with you about that
Awesome.
too. And I'm sure, I hope that the mayor's administration would want to have discussions around that. So Mr. McNair is Economic Development Director. But the other thing I wanted to do, and I know this is tied mostly to Destination Cleveland, but we just passed about $2 million to the for seed money for like Forbes and some of these special events. That's different than this $250 that we're doing for the Sports Commission, right?
Correct. Thank you for the question. So the 250 is toward, our organization, the Sports Commission, has about every year between a $2 and $2.5 million operating budget. And the city support is a big part of that. We raise the majority of it privately. We have a great board who supports it, our own fundraisers. But we raise overall about a third of our operating budget is through one form or another of public support, which is critical. And what it allows us to do, there's a direct line to our ability to provide the services we do, which is why so many events choose Cleveland over other places. It's not just Cleveland's sunny skies over San Diego or Tampa or Kansas City or other cities we compete against. It's we make their events better. We provide more services. So when AAU brings a youth volleyball tournament or NCAA brings women's Final Four, it is better in Cleveland than it is in other places because what we are able to provide for them at no cost. And so that's a direct correlation between the city support. Those other dollars if the Sports Commission does apply to access, it would be on occasions where events, it doesn't happen very often, the events themselves have a significant amount of fundraising in order to bring it to Cleveland. And even then, we have other sources. But there are times, like this summer's Pan Am Master Games is a good example, we have to go out and raise a bunch of money, almost all privately. But there may be times when that fund might be something, and it will be directly for expenses of an event.
Okay, great. And just last thing, and then I'll turn it over to any of my colleagues. First of all, Dave, you guys do a great job. I know that I'm biased because as council president, I actually have a role in helping the board be successful. But appreciate what you guys are doing. The only last thing that I would just tell you is council is like any other investment board. And as we go through these kind of investments, always keep council in mind because we'd like to see how things operate, how things move. Like the 30 for 30, even though I'm well over 30 and was not going to go hang out with a bunch of 30-year-olds, I still wanted to understand what all of the hype was about. So just to see how things were moving and how our investments are being made. So please keep council in mind when that happens,
Thank
okay?
you. We will for
all right.
sure.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, the $250,000, is that what we offer or is that their ask?
Through the chair to the councilman, that is traditionally what we have worked with on them, so I think it's kind of a standing commitment.
Right, and that's a conversation that we've been having at this table for many, many years. You talk about a return of investment of only $250,000, and in one event, they're going to generate $22 million, to the city of Cleveland. They're unsung heroes here in the city. They are absolutely the biggest economic driver in the city of Cleveland. And I think to them, it should almost be insulting that the city's just giving them $250,000. And I would advocate for next year that that we need to show a little bit more love to this entity and this organization because they do so much for the city, and they don't ask a lot. And for $250,000 out of our general fund, we spend millions and millions on consultants and don't get anything back on that. And here we're giving only $250,000 on something that generates millions and millions of dollars. So I would encourage you, Director, and you, Mr. Gilbert, next year to come to the table with probably a bigger ask. I don't think anybody on this side of the table would balk at it at all, knowing the economic impact that you bring to the city. So, Director, I know that you haven't heard this. This has been told to other directors before, but I do think it's time that this return of investment could go a little bit deeper into our pockets for what we get for the bang for the buck. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair to the councilman, one, I do appreciate that. And yes, as I'm kind of getting my arms around a lot of these different kind of long-standing commitments, there is undoubtedly Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, others have done incredible work and produce a great return on investment. I think you also know through your budget hearings, we get in our department $3 million annually. That is it. That kind of comes below the line. About $1.8 million of that is put into these types of organizations. And I think that you all also understand and know that the city of Cleveland is filled with infinite needs and very limited resources. So as a department, we look at where we can put these dollars to maximize the return on that investment. Do also have to be cognizant that there are a lot of needs throughout the city.
And Mr. Chairman and the Director, I can appreciate that, but show me any other entity that produces the economic impact that this one does for the dollars that they get. So that's my, I don't want to say challenge to the administration for next year, but Mr. Gilbert also, I think you could come with a bigger ask as well, because I think that this side of the table has had this conversation for many years, at least since 2015, since I've been here, that we've had the same conversation every year. So I know the work, the yeoman's work that they do, and knowing that they're only growing, right? Especially with the events that they're able to produce for the city. I think it's time to look just a little bit of a reevaluation of the dollars that's asked for here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman, everybody here knows that I'm probably the most frugal councilman on this table. I'm the guy who likes to pinch pennies and cheat. And all my colleagues would tell you that. But I have to agree, that's my point of why I was bringing up that conversation. I don't think people really understand how important your organization is as an economic driver. I think people look at the nice events and the sports. But I had a couple of days off last week for unforeseen reasons, and it gives me a chance to think. And I was like, we're not really messaging this right, and we got to really spend some time that people that are interested in this really messaging this right. And I'm really interested in how we could team up to do that. Okay, Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything in particular, except, I support Councilman Brian Casey's statements. However, if Issue 38 passes next week, ain't nobody getting nothing, okay? So I hope everybody in this room who lives in Cleveland are ready prepared to go to those polls to vote no, all right?
Exactly.
In case he's watching, so that's just my little two tidbits. Thank you, Mr.
And
Chair.
everybody knows what he's talking about voting no for. We ain't going to have to reiterate it.
Nobody get nothing.
But if I could, if you could, Mr. McNair, you did mention something that I do want to make sure we follow up on. You said you have $3 million allocated to you for these type of organizations. I'm estimating that it's everything from Destination Cleveland to the Film Commission to Global Cleveland to all of the above. So that's $3 million. And I do want us to be cautious. If we could get a list of what all, we should know that through the process, but if we could follow up with Joe Titron and make sure that we get a list of all of those things that you fund with that $3 million that you have for that, because I think that'll help us with our deliberation process as well. Because quite frankly, Councilman Casey is right. We could actually just set the budget.
Yes, and to the chair, yes, very much appreciate and understand, but it is not just support of organizations like this. This is grants, loans, everything to businesses, large and small.
So a total of $3 million.
Yes, sir.
Could we make sure we got that so that we could actually see that? And I'm pretty sure a lot of the council members would like to see that, because then it also show how the investments that are made actually benefit had a windfall as well, okay? All right, anything else from any of my colleagues?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just in closing, DPS will bring the department back to the table to go through kind of the programs that they offer, who they support. They also provide operating support for the Urban League, Jumpstart, and many others, Siri, who does this work across our city. So we will have them back at the table so they can share a full list of who they support and how they support.
Okay, thank you. And I want to take a moment. We always got to recognize some of our unsung heroes that are employees here. You have Ms. Philpott, who's actually a very valued employee, so we appreciate the work she does. She don't know we pay attention, but we do pay attention to what she does, okay? All right, thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1192-2023 stands approved, and we look forward to following up with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Film Commission, if you guys can come up next. And Ms. Jimenez, could you let me know if we have any other guests? I think we have another guest for the resolutions that we're going to do, because I want to make sure that we have guests first, okay? Okay, Greater Cleveland Film Commission, this is ordinance number 1199-2023 by council members Griffin and Hairston by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Greater Cleveland Media Development Corporation, DBE, Greater Cleveland Film Commission, or its designee to assist with general operating expenses for this organization. And once again, I know that I got a message from Mr. Garvey. He's out today, but Mr. McNair, you want to introduce your guest, and then we'll go into the legislation.
Sir, so thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I am here with Stephanie Philibert from our office, as well as Seema Jaiswal. Jaswal, all right, as well as Lowell Perry from the Greater Cleveland Film Commission. As you know, in Councilman Casey's vein of organizations that create quite a return on investment for the amount of money we invest in them, and as I told Councilman Harrison and Councilwoman Santana at last week's DPS, I actually do recall in 2009 when a former colleague of mine with the administration helped with the first grant to this organization with the idea of creating a commission that could help build the film industry in our city. And since that time, they've helped create over 6,000 jobs and have driven over $1.2 billion in economic output to our region. And again, I will say this as a former resident of downtown Cleveland. I recall when watching Spider-Man chase the Sandman down Euclid Avenue, and I joked at the last time, it literally took the magic of the movies to help stores be filled on Euclid Avenue, right? Downtown was a very different place then. And I know that this organization, through the pushing of council over the course of time, has worked really hard to create better community programs, to work more closely with the educational institutions in town, all of which they are doing, but they are here before you looking for $250,000 in operating support. And with that, I will send it over to the team over here to tell you a little bit more about what they're doing, not just broadly through the film industry, but also in our neighborhoods.
Hi, thank you so much. I've actually been with the Film Commission for over 9 years. So I've been at this table many times with Mr. Schwartz, the former director, and I'm really excited because this is really the first time this organization has a lot of momentum. The tax credit, which we advocate for down in Columbus, is actually going to be double next year in July, $75 million. So we are anticipating just so much more production coming to the region to scout and film here. And our office, it's actually funny listening to David Gilbert, because almost everything he said for the Sports Commission applies to the Film Commission. So we are the conduit, to help them find places to actually build their production offices and scout locations and break down scripts. And actually, Bill Garvey, our president, is in LA actively recruiting new business. So he's meeting with studio executives and decision makers, which is something that we've done for years. So we actively seek out productions and say, come to Cleveland, come film here. And as you mentioned, our economic impact. So we had a movie here in 2019 called White Noise that spent over $100 million in economic development. And they were here for 10 months. They ate at our restaurants. They stayed at our hotels. over 36,000 room nights, and that's just what one movie can do. And we are really hoping that, you know, with this tax credit increase, that we have several movies here at a time.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
Good to see you all again. Thank you, Chair. It's been a while since my old sisters at Charities days as the leader of the Central Promise neighborhood. It's good to see you, and a couple of the faces I recognize we've spoken to on a couple of occasions. As my colleague suggested, and one of the things that I wanted to make sure that people understand at the end of the day, you know, when people hear the term film or media, oftentimes they just immediately go to, oh, that seems real nice and fluffy and that kind of thing. But at our core, this organization is a workforce and economic development group. That's what we do. We utilize the film and media production industry to drive impact in those areas. And it is a growing industry. You know, there are not too many industries that can say that since, you know, over the past decade, they've essentially doubled in nationwide capacity. There was $128 billion spent on film in 2012 to $228 billion last year. So there's a huge opportunity that is there. We also are creating career paths. Besides just the jobs that Mr. McNair mentioned, you know, a job in film and media production, you're talking about high-paying union wages that start at $30.47 an hour and $152 a day, pension and health benefits. It means no out-of-pocket expense, and that is something that we want to push more Clevelanders to. You know, our programs in that area are geared toward Cleveland. That's where our workshops take place, and that's with intention to make sure that we're getting to the proper communities. We are also being extremely intentional with our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I'm literally writing my job description as I go as the Chief Diversity Officer and VP of Corporate and Community Engagement. Obviously, VP of the corporate engagement is getting more corporations involved in funding as we are a 501c3. My colleague, Ms. Jayaswal, mentioned, you know, the film White Noise, $106.6 million into the industry. We don't see any of that. You know, we depend on the support, the generous support of the city and county and others to keep us doing what we do. And because of that doubling of the tax incentive, you know, we're up against it in terms of our capacity to be able to do what we need to do. So I'm hoping that through the chair to Councilman Casey down there, that he's thinking the same thing about this group that he was just talking about.
He frugal too.
But we're thrilled. You know, you're talking about for every $3 invested in film and media production, a 3-to-1 return. So if somebody was to come to you and say, hey, Councilman Polensek, did I pronounce that right? Yes. I have a 3-to-1 deal for you on this. Probably not a bad investment, right? So we're
I've heard someone has approached us.
So the point being is that I think we're very bullish on the city. And, you know, I just ran into my fraternity brother, Mr. Mayor Bibb, out in the hall there, and you know, was glad that we're part of this renaissance that's happening here in Cleveland. We are, with intention, doing our community outreach, going back to some of my old network. When we met a week ago, Councilman Hairston suggested that we come out and we meet with every member of the council in their districts to learn a little bit more, and we're following up on that. In fact, that came up in our staff meeting. We already are going to be sending you some things that you can use in your newsletters for your constituents and all as well. So with all of that being said, you know, whatever questions that you have, and just we appreciate your hearing us here today.
Okay, thank you, first of all. And Just out of curiosity, before I go to my colleague, Councilwoman Santana, what was the cap? It was 40, right?
Yes.
It's been 40 for the past like 6 years. And then starting July 1st of this year, it went to 50. And then next year, it'll go to 75 in July.
Okay, because just so everybody could know for their knowledge, what was happening is the entire state had $40 million cap in movies and movie subsidies. And we were starting to lose movies to Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, and all of these other places because they had unlimited cap. And we passed a resolution as this council to try to increase the cap to 100, but we got to 75. We didn't get to quite 100, right?
Right. Yeah, no, to the chair, that's absolutely correct, and we appreciate that foresight on it. And, you know, I tell my kids all the time, you know, if you get a little something and it's a start, it's better than a stick in the eye. And it is. It's going to make us more competitive. But when you consider that Pennsylvania is already at 100, and, you know, Louisiana, New Mexico are over 100, New Jersey just went to 200, Texas 200, we still have some work to do, but it's a great start. And we already have, once the Screen Actors Guild strike is over, we've got $118 million already lined up coming up here in 2024.
And you led into my next question. So the SAG-AFTRA strike is affecting the income that we would usually bring into this as well.
Yes, yes, you know, and it's.
There's like 2 or 3 productions.
Could you speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry. There are 2 or 3 productions that had to stop what they were doing. And there was one actually here that actually found a production office, and then they had to pack up and go.
And a lot of people don't know that. That's money that we lose. A lot of people think that these things don't affect them, but they do.
I just want to add to a point to what Lowell was saying and what David was saying earlier is that, you know, our organization is, you know, a #1 advocate for the tax credit in Ohio. And we are trying to compete with the other states. Just like David says, you know, we want sports to come to Cleveland. Well, we want film to come to Cleveland. And so another big part of our mission is that.
And by the way, if anybody was wondering, you know, out of that 50 million this year, 75 next year, typically between 60 and 70% finds its way here to Cleveland, Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, and I kind of figured that. Now, the last thing before I turn it over to my colleague.
That's my question.
Oh, I did? Okay. Netflix and Hulu and some of those original shows are really growing in popularity. Are we tapping into those industries as well and not just the big motion picture industry? Because a lot of the minority directors and business people are in that arena. And I know that we were losing a few of them because they actually came to meet with me last year as well. So how are we attracting some of those minority directors and producers and others that maybe some of those smaller streaming services like Netflix and others that are starting to grow?
Well, you know, absolutely, that is something that is on the radar, and we're actively pursuing relationships there as well, because that's where the industry seems to be headed. That's part of the reason why you had the Writers Guild strike and the SAG-AFTRA strike has been through how some of those streaming services are being utilized. But you're absolutely right. You know, the more we can attract of those kinds of things, episodic television, which Pittsburgh has too, that they've got running on about their 3rd year now, those are the kind of things that we want to see end up here. And we do work with local and independent filmmakers to help them chart out as they're small businesses at the end of the day, and how do you fashion and strategically plan to grow your business to the point to where you can take advantage of the motion picture tax credits, for example. How can you be connected to some of the other resources and maybe other sources of, whether it's from location scouting, whether it's other funding sources that might help with a smaller production. I know Mike Wendt on our team, our production coordinator, has connected a number of people with sources of revenue like that. And that's something that I would, as the Chief Diversity Officer, and have been in conversations with GCP and others about expanding a program, Mr. Chairman, to really focus on the business of film.
Yeah.
You might be the most creative person in the world, but at the end of the day, you've got to recognize you're a small business. You know, you have to have a business plan. You have to have a strategic plan to operationalize that plan. How do you pitch an idea? And how do you move from a $5,000 a movie deal to one that puts you up in 5- and 6-figure range?
Right. Just one last thing that I just thought of. I know that most of these other cities have a sound stage or they have a production studio. And I know that there have been several people that have been interested in trying to do a production studio. I understand that it takes a significant amount of acreage, as well as it needs to be, I hear different stories that it can't be by a railroad because of the noise and vibration, but then I hear that you can do it and build it in that such a way. But we have plenty of land in the city of Cleveland. We just put $50 million into a sites fund. My question is for you and Mr. McNair. Are we looking and trying to get some of those folks that are trying to build this kind of sound stage or studio and try to work with the Sites Fund in order to try to find the appropriate location so that we could actually increase our ability to do some of these things?
Well, they definitely come to our office, and we do consulting, if you will. But at the current number, the tax rate is the tax incentive is $75 million. We want to make sure when it's done, that it's busy all year round. And the movies, I think, they all go where the tax incentives go, right? So we want to just make sure that the projects are going to be busy and successful. So we're happy to, Bill, it would be Bill and Lowell, to work with the folks.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on what my colleague was just saying there, Mr. Chairman, this business is totally driven first and foremost by tax incentives, then secondarily by available crew talent that's in the area with which to make it. There is a small amount of set aside in the new tax incentive package that makes allowances for infrastructure, but the industry just simply does not work on a build it and they will come basis. There has to be the sufficient regular revenue, or they'll end up like has happened in other cities, an Amazon warehouse or a pigeon farm. And I don't, say that with any relish, but that is the reality at this point. So that's why it's important for us to, and the council was right to try to be pushing to that 100 million mark, because that seems to be something that makes it a lot more feasible to then have somebody plunk down some money. I've got some ideas around that, and a group that may invest in something like that I would love to see happen.
Well, if we could, I want to make this one of council's priorities, and I know that we did last year through a resolution. I don't know when the biannual budget is coming up again, but we need to probably start preparing again and really making that push as a community. I've learned that if the private sector, the philanthropic sector, and the government sector all push together, then we all should be able to really make it known to our representatives down at the state as well as the people at the State House on why this is important, okay?
You hit it right on the head.
We're all on board with that. I'm going to go to my colleague, Councilman Mike Palese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Director, I just want some clarification again on the funding. So the pot of money this is coming out is the same pot that we're utilizing for the Film Commission?
Through the
I
chair
mean
to
for the Sports Commission, excuse me.
Through the chair to the director, that's correct.
And what is the total amount that you have in there?
So on an annualized basis, we get $3 million allocated through the general fund that can be used for grants and loans through a
Right.
variety of, again, that could be everything from refilling pots that we use to help small businesses or corporations, or give operating grants to organizations like these.
So outside of the general fund, is there any other source for this support?
No.
No, so it's strictly general fund. So it's the Sports Commission, it's the Film Commission, and what else?
It is Jumpstart, it is Urban League, there's a handful
it's-
of it.
okay, out of
The
that.
Aerozone, right, there's a
Right.
handful of different ones.
And that is a line item in your budget?
There's a $3 million line item in the budget of which we have discretion of how to allocate.
Okay, so give you a heads up, if you could, going into the budget discussions as we
Yep.
are right now, if we can have all the entities you funded
Yep.
in 2022, that would be very helpful for us to see that
Okay.
as we move forward. Because again, I mean, I think we all realize, that dollars are scarce, and so we have to allocate them in the best way possible. And now we have another group with the participatory budgeting group,
Yep.
issue 38, who wants to take another 14 million out of our general fund. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking as we're going into next year. We're not only have to project implications for next year, but maybe 3 years out.
Yep.
On how this affects the city's ability to provide basic services. Because right now, services are nothing to write home about, in my opinion. So I'm really concerned as, what groups we prioritize, where we can get the biggest bang for the buck out of it in return. So I'm looking at the whole big picture as we go into the budget round next year. So we all know the benefits of this. That's why we advocated, as the council president indicated, in the resolutions urging the state to up the ante here. But on the other side of the coin, we have people who want to take our money. And that concerns me greatly. So those are all the discussions. So again, to those people who are sitting at home debating about issue 38, I would hope you would cast a no vote because of the implications it means to us in this city, as it means to our general fund delivery of basic city services. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And my name is Blaine Griffin, and I approve that message. The other thing that I want to, before I go to Councilman Casey, Mr. Tyson, did you get that request again for all of those? Okay, because we do want to make sure we look at that. And just to be clear, that's not just for these kind of big economic development tools. That's for some of the small hanging fruit that we use for different businesses, grants, titles. So it's not just for the sports commissions and Global Clevelands.
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I've affectionately renamed our department the Department of Smoke and Mirrors.
Okay, that's a good one, but that's a very good point. So I want to make sure we get that done. All right, Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't, rehash what I said before, but it's ditto for this department as well. I think when you guys start talking about this next year, your ask should be slightly more than it is now, and I don't think that anybody would disagree that the return on investment with our $250,000 on your organization is only second to none to the Sports Commission. So I just wanted to reiterate again that, your ask should be a little bit more for next year. Despite what's going on with issue 38, I won't play that, but I'm just assuming it's not going to pass. So I'm hoping it's not going to pass. So just with that, going forward, I think even, Director, if you need to up that $3 million in the budget or however you want to do that, knowing that these two organizations definitely deserve a little bit more of our investment from the city, I think that would be well worthwhile. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1199-2023 stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you all so much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And good to see you again, Mr. Perry. All right. Thank you. I got one more financial or economic development piece, I think. 1087-2023 by Councilmember Starr, Bishop, Hairston, Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to vacate all of East 59th Street from Central Avenue to Hawthorne Avenue and a portion of Hawthorne Court from East 59th to parcel number 118-19-030. And I believe we're going to have Director DeRosa.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. This is for a street vacation. This is the third of three steps of a street vacation process, ordinance to vacate the street. I did want to introduce my guest all the way on my, here we go, on the left. If you could introduce yourself, since I got your name not quite right last time.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. This is Jim J.P. Potacek with Larson Architects, representing the project for Project Renaissance with International Food Solutions.
So this vacation is for a division of an affiliate of International Food Solutions, Inc., which is about a $75 million project. The first phase is the renovation of the Goodwill building, and the second phase would be new construction. And so this street ordinance would allow for the new construction to take place. I did want to note that during the second step, which is the Board of Revision of Assessments, the vacation of Hawthorne Court was pulled back because one of the residents did not want the street vacated behind their home. So that's why we have a map in here that shows only a partial vacation of Hawthorne Court. And that is enough for the project to move forward. And with that, I'd like to offer if Economic Development needed to say any words about the project.
Thank you, Director. And to the Chairman, this is a project that you'll be hearing more about from our department. It's one that we're extraordinarily excited about, taking place in Councilman Starr's 5th Ward on a long vacant building. International Food Service Company, which produces Asian and Latin American and Indian pre-prepared foods that go out to over 5,000 K-12 school districts nationally. Right, food production is a place that we think we can really start to win in the city of Cleveland. About 20% of the deals that have come through this type of pipeline have been food service. They're going on. This would be a $60 million renovation of this place, bringing in over 200 new jobs to the area, and these are good paying jobs coming in at north of $20 an hour going in. So again, this is a project that we're really excited about and one that we are actively working with the company in terms of helping make this a reality.
Thank you, everybody. Councilman Hairston, this went through Development, Planning, and Sustainability.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this did pass out of DP&S committee. Councilman Starr is in full support of the vacation. I know that they have been working on the numbers as relates to the gap that the project has experienced, and I believe this is in response to that to, reduce the area plus accommodate the resident who lives on the street. Request as well, and Councilman Starr has been on top of the project and making sure that what his community is looking for, it happens, and to making sure that this project's gap is handled so that way we won't be giving up the street if in fact the project doesn't go forward. So from his perspective, I believe this meets the threshold for support. So I just asked my committee for support.
All right, thank you. And I know Councilman Starr heard it at Municipal Services this morning, so just want to make sure that he's in support, and I do understand that he is. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1087-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm going to bring up, do we have a representative from Global Cleveland? If you could come up along with Mr. Clayton and anybody else representing for this resolution for council.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. McNair. All right, this is resolution number 1017-2023 by Councilmember Griffin and Mayor Bibb, an emergency resolution declaring this council's desire that Cleveland and Cape Town, South Africa, establish a sister city relationship and authorizing the mayor to enter into such agreement and execute such documents that are necessary to implement the relationship. And I know we have Nelson from Global Cleveland and Mr. Clayton, Kevin Clayton from the Cavs, who's very active in this, but start us off if you could.
Thank you so much again for having us today, and thank you for 2 weeks ago for moving forward with Tamagana. This is now 2 of 3 of our new African sister cities that we are working on, and we have received only support from both council and the community. And so I just want to say that moving forward on this is the right decision. We are diversifying our sister city relationships. And I think, and my guest that everyone knows, Kevin Clayton, will explain the benefits of this particular choice. And so,
Mr. Clayton.
Okay. Council President, it's a pleasure. Also, councilmen and women. A year ago, I actually spoke in Cape Town. I spent 10 days there speaking on behalf of the Cavs, but also I was invited to speak at a sports conference with people from all over the world. The conversation I was asked to speak about, believe it or not, of all places, was around diversity, inclusion, and equity. I will tell you that it was one of the most humbling experiences that I had because I'm standing in the shadows of Nelson Mandela, and I'm not thinking I'm equipped to say anything that hadn't been said. So at the end of my kind of keynote, there was a long line of people, and all of you have spoken, and you know that's kind of how it is at the end. People want to say certain things, but it was a different energy from these men and women who were coaches, administrators, elected officials, and what have you. They had, as I was talking about what we do in Cleveland, I was talking about what we do from a Cavs standpoint. They were asking questions around how can we help them? And again, I'm puzzled because I'm like, this is where the great Nelson Mandela was here. And they said, no, what you talked about was something different than we've ever experienced before. And if you think about coming out of apartheid, it was a shift that was similar to affirmative action. And that shift was, how do we level the playing field for black South Africans, those that lived in Cape Town, to be able to participate in the sports to balance the playing field? So at that point, what they heard was this concept of inclusion and equity, to the point where they had asked, can you come back to help us as a community balance this off? Said differently, and I'll finish my comments, they are stuck in a 1950s and 1960s model of what in the States was akin to affirmative action, which said we're going to overload the playing field on one side. And what happened is it's not only around who plays sports there, it's playing time is regulated. So it wasn't, so I had black and white coaches both saying this is hard because we don't know how to manage what you just told us about what you all do in Cleveland and how fairness and equity and equality, what you do in the NBA, what the Cavs do. And they were saying, can you help? So I was thinking just, okay, well, I'll do whatever I can. I came back and had conversations with Global Cleveland. And for me, this sister city relationship goes further than just from an economic standpoint, where they may have ideas from a waterway standpoint, knowing that we have some things that we can do that we're working on as a community. But it can put us on the map of helping a city to go to the next level as it relates to fairness, equality, and equity that has not been discussed. And it has to do with playing time. They even regulate playing time. Black athletes are forced onto teams just because of their skin color. And if you think about it, it's like, well, that's okay. But it's not okay because the athletes are saying they have mental health problems because their minutes are regulated. So imagine the sports that they have, which are soccer, rugby, and cricket. If it's a 2-1 score, and because I just happen to be on the field and my time to have minutes on the field, the white players and some of the black players are resenting each other because of it's an imbalance. It's not around the quality of play. It's not about skills. It's just about skin color, which if you think about how we were back in the 60s and 70s, in some cases it still happens now. So I think we as a city, also with the work that we do, we can help bridge a gap that is necessary in that community that they've asked for.
Well, first of all, that's very philosophical. Very good what you just said, because I'll be honest with you, I'm starting to see how diversity, equity, and inclusion affects time more than anything. And quite frankly, I know we keep harping on issue 38 today, but most communities of color that are poor communities of color do not have the same amount of leisure time.
Right.
As other affluent communities. And I believe that actually affects some of the health disparities and outcomes and economic outcomes and other things that we have to deal with as well. Because some people are working 3 or 4 times as hard and making a minuscule amount compared to some people that are not working as hard and making a lot more. So I really appreciate what you said there, because that was actually very enlightening. And I was going to ask you the question, but you already summed it up about apartheid, that I want to make sure that we're not supporting, a different version of apartheid, and that's basically clear in what your answer
no,
is.
they're asking us to take them to the next level of where we in this community are right now. And why not Cleveland is my response.
We may send Mike Polisic over there to teach him a few things, too. All right. Okay, any of my colleagues?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Polisic.
I support it. I was here when we, and I'm trying to think of the years now, where we supported resolutions in support of Nelson Mandela, the efforts that had been taken by the ANC and other individuals. So again, I'm trying to figure out what years those were. It's been some time ago, to say the least. But the council was very proactive in support of those folks who were opposing apartheid and trying to break down that system. And so maybe this is just an evolution in that process. So again, I'm here to support it as well.
That's great. That's great. Nelson, help remind me, we do have one more that we're going to do, and then we're going to have a big signing ceremony for all of the African cities that we have just, what is the last one again?
So November 13th will be Kigali, Rwanda, and the signing ceremony should be after that.
And remind me, other than Egypt, I don't think that we're killing the game with a lot of African sister cities.
Alexandria, Egypt, and Bari Dar, Ethiopia, and we have one in Nigeria as well. So we're doubling our share of African sister cities. However, these three are very engaged on our side. This is Cleveland saying we have connections, existing connections, like Mr. Clayton just explained, with these cities. To be honest, the connections with our current cities, apart from Ethiopia, are lacking. And so using existing connections that are invigorated, that have energy behind them right now, that have input from our current community here right now, I think is important to recognize that energy, to make that energy into an actual document, and then use that energy to engage with these cities. Whereas the cities that we currently don't engage with anymore, it's harder to resurrect that from the dead than to use current invigorated communities that are existing right now, like with Temagana, Kigali, Rwanda, and Cape Town, South Africa.
Sure. Can we get a list of all the sister
Absolutely.
cities?
I'll
If we
send that
could,
to you.
make sure. And so just, first of all, any way that we could be helpful. I
all
work
been very helpful.
close with Mr. Clayton. He's become like one of, I'm too old to have mentors, but I guess I can still call him mentor. But he's one of the best I know around DEI and diversity, equity, and conclusion. So he's a very good, close friend that I work closely with. So whatever we could do to be helpful, we want to be helpful. But for the list in public, you guys manage all of those sister city relationships, which a lot of people don't realize promote Cleveland,
Yes.
the culture, industry, jobs, economic development, and other things, as well as if I have a doctor at Cleveland Clinic that has a problem getting a green card, I've had problems reaching senators and Congress people, but my good friend Semperman will be on it and jump on it right away. So you guys do a lot. Once again, one of those investments made out of that pot of money that we have for economic development. So just so the listening public can understand how city government works, because we try really hard to educate the public on how government works, okay?
And we appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions regarding resolution number 1017-2023? Seeing no other questions, thank you guys. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go Cavs. Councilman Polisic would like his name to be added to this. And Councilwoman Santana. Okay, thank you. Please sign on. All right, I'm going to go in order now because I think that's all of the guests. So let's do public safety. I have ordinance number 1004-2023 by Council Members Polisic and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more agreements with Cuyahoga County for administration and operation of the Family Justice Center and to pay the county for its share of costs for a period of up to 4 years. There are no amendments. Chief and, what's your name again?
Michael Gelman, Fiscal Manager.
Mr. Gelman? Gelman. Mr. Gelman. That's the infamous Mr. Gelman. Public safety guru. All right, Chief.
Good afternoon, Chair, council members. Today we're here for ordinance number 1004-2023, which authorizing the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more agreements with the Cuyahoga County Administration and operation of the Family Justice Center, and to pay the county for its share of the costs for a period of up to 4 years. If passed by council, ordinance number I just stated would authorize the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more agreements with the county to continue to provide administrative and operation of the Family Justice Center and pay the county for its share of the cost for a period of 2 years. Under the previous agreement, Cuyahoga County is authorized by the city to be the legal agent for a lease agreement at the site selected, and that funds allocated by the city annually for 4 years for the center to be authorized for use by the county for payment or partial payment of the rental agreement. The rent for the first year is $189,000 plus the anticipated cost of the utilities of $18,750 for a total estimated cost of $207,750. This legislation is important because it will continue to provide a coordinated effort in providing the necessary services to the victims of these crimes, continue to ease the burden of navigating the path to obtaining services associated with the current assistance system. This legislation will continue to provide another avenue for the victims of these crimes to more easily obtain the services they need during an already difficult period of their lives.
Okay. Just a couple of things regarding this ordinance. Question that I have for you is how much, you said 189, so we're just paying the cost for rent every month for them, or what are we doing? What is the cost? And what all are we paying for?
Through the director to the chair, yes, the 189,000 is the anticipated first year of the lease payment, and then we have a share of the utilities as well. The county covers the costs of the full-time administration of the program, as well as overhead and whatnot, and they also provide all the victim advocates for the entire program.
Okay. And do we know how many have used it, and more specifically, how many people from Cleveland have actually utilized the center? Because domestic violence is a huge issue in our city, and we know we had a spike during COVID. I'm interested in if we were able to do any of the investments that we made in the Journey Centers and some of the other places, if we were able to draw that trajectory down a little bit.
To the chair, what we have for this year, and this is a number of walk-in clients through September, was 1,198.
Okay. All right. Other thing is, you said that it's not considered being moved, is it? We're not looking at moving it or anything?
No. Through the director to the chair, no.
Okay, because I know that there was a conversation one time about that building being sold, and I didn't know if it was, if we had a legacy lease or what we have in order to make sure we deal with it.
Through the chair through the director to the chair, the county is the administrator of the lease. They have not indicated there's any plan on moving it.
Okay, I just want to strongly make sure that we stay on top of that because love the county, but sometimes they like to move some facilities kind of out to the suburban communities, and one of the keys for this was to make sure that it was on a bus line, that it was centrally located, and that people had easy access to it. And I just hope that we are continuing to look at that as well, okay? All right, Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard this in the Safety Committee, my honorable colleagues. There were some questions, though, that were asked, and I'm hoping that the administration would have some response to those questions that were raised at the Safety Committee.
To the chair, we believe we have some of the answers. One of the answers that we just, one of the questions that was asked, I provided an answer for was the amount of clients.
Yes.
And, as stated before, again, just for this year, 2023, it's almost 2,000, just under, just
Okay.
almost 2,000.
And we had, and I know you couldn't provide it today, but we'd also asked that we start to receive, Mr. Chairman, more ward-based information as it pertains to people who are being serviced in our wards. So again, I would hope that the administration would carry that request back to the county folks as well, so we can have a better understanding as to where the key source of, if we're having one section of the city that's having a uptick in domestic violence cases or sexual assault, those are all things that the council needs to know. And again, whatever we could be provided based on ward data would be very helpful to us. That's something that we raised in the committee, Mr. Chairman.
To the chair, we certainly understand.
Okay.
And try to get that information to you, but also it's from the questions that were asked from the last hearing, we did break the information out by zip codes, so I think that should be able to help. It's not exactly what you're looking for
Okay.
relative to wards,
Yeah.
but we'll work with that as well.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, before the chief leaves, I just have a general question, but my colleagues have other questions.
Okay. Councilman Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and the Chief, where is the Family Justice Center located?
I have the exact address for you. It's 75 Erie View Plaza, 5th floor.
And is the Family Justice Center open to, that's a county-run program, correct?
To the chair, it's correct.
All right. And Mr. Chairman, to the Chief, does suburbanites utilize the Family Justice Center? Are there victims from people coming in from the suburbs as well who get that utilized, that program?
To the chair, I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I would say since it's ran by the county, it's a county program, I would have to say yes.
Okay. Director, do you know the answer?
Councilman through the chair, yes. It is it is run by the county. Felony domestic violence cases, the Victims Advocate Service, the entire county.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to either the chief or the director, how much do other cities pay for the Family Justice Center?
Councilman, I do not know the breakdown from other jurisdictions. I do know that the cost that we pay is lesser than the amount of the entire lease, but we can request that a breakdown from the county.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, if we could get that information, because I'm having a hard time with this. This is a lot of money, right? Going to the county to provide what initially is a county service, right? And I don't know where the city has to draw the line in paying for county services, sort of like, why aren't we paying for any other service that the county provides to the city? So, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, can you give us the background on how this came about, that we would help offset rent for the county? I mean, we already pay them rent in the Justice Center. Now we're paying them for rent in Erie View. So can you give us the background on how we came about with this piece of legislation?
To the chair, to the councilman, Safety Chief Director Howard can give you a little bit more of the background.
All right.
I can. I don't want to ad-lib a historical background, Councilman. If you give me some time, I can get an email to you with that. But I do know that it stems from the partnership and the grant funding that we received from the VAWA grant was significant in that discussion. But I can get a more detailed explanation for you.
All right, and then, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to direct you to the chief because I have a hard time. All right, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, is this money coming out of general fund money or is it a grant?
Part of it is general fund.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, to the chair, to the councilman, to the general fund, from the general fund.
All right, if you could just get us that information, but I'm having a hard time with this one, Mr. Chairman, given the county dollars to provide a service that the county should be providing anyway, and then I'm really going to be interested in knowing what other cities are paying for this as well, if they're utilizing it.
Councilman, I totally understand.
It's a tough pill to swallow for me, because this is obviously a program that the county should be providing, and I don't know why we're offsetting the payment for rent at Erie View for we don't have any staff there. This is all, Mr. Chairman to the Chief, this is all county staff, correct?
To the chair, to the councilman, it's administered by the county. That's their staff. That's correct.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with it, Mr. Chairman.
So if we could do this, because there's a long history behind this, and I know some of it, but I don't know all of it, so I don't want to misspeak. But there was a history that I think we were supposed to start with the build out and then try to kind of like wean ourselves out of this, and I'm not sure if that has happened, but I'm not sure if the safety director or others. I know that this was really spearheaded by former safety director Flask. That's how far back it goes, and Special Assistant Flask. And it was a deal that was done between municipal court. It goes all the way back to Ron Adrian when he was the chief administrator. And there's a deal that was made between municipal court, the city of Cleveland, the county, and the county court, that all of them kind of like cobbled together this organization that'd be like a one-stop shop for domestic violence. So once again, I'm not sure how the payment structure, and it may be other people that have more history than I do, but I do know that the original deal was supposed to be for build out and for helping with build out, and then I thought we were trying to kind of like scale back as we went, and I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
I'm not quite sure, but to the chair, to the chair and the council members, also this program there from the Family Justice Center includes taking care of our misdemeanor victims. They handle all the cases relative to our misdemeanor victims, and also just our victims in the cases and so forth. So they are handling quite a bit of our cases, again, for domestic violence and others, which is directly related and affecting our citizens.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the Chief, this is, because the utilities is really crawling at me as well. But the $207,000, $750,000 is just for the first year. This is a 4-year. This is for 4 years. So is there an increase built? If it's anything like the deal at the Justice Center, we know there's an increase built in, and no in the county. Mr. Chairman, to the Chief, so it's $207,750 for the first year. Do we know what it's going to be for the next 3 years following?
Yes, sir. For year 2, it's $195,000. For year 3, it's $202,000, and for year 4, it's $209,000.
So with this piece of legislation, Mr. Chairman, and obviously utilities are included in those as well. Mr. Chairman, this doesn't look like a way that we were supposed to be weaning our way out of this. How many years have, Mr. Chairman, to the Chief or the Director, have we been in this agreement?
To the chair, I believe since 2014. Yeah, I'm sorry, 2014. Sorry, to the chair, to Councilman Casey, since 2014.
And does anybody have the original agreement?
To the chair,
That would
to the
be
councilman, I'm
helpful to
sure
get
we
some
can find
guidance.
that, get that information to you.
So if we could do this, Councilman Casey, if we could give Councilman Casey that original agreement by tonight, because I'm sensing some hesitation that he would like to get some more understanding, and maybe the original agreement can spell that out. Once again, that's the reason I didn't want to misspeak, because I don't know if we were actually supposed to wean ourselves out. I just know that the original costs were around build out. I did not know if it was a subsequent agreement around rental agreements or what, or how that was broken down. But the agreement should be able to give us that information.
President, through the council to the president, if I may, is that Chief made a good point in that the services that are provided to us at the municipal court is a cost savings to us. The victims advocates that are employed by the county don't provide the same services to the other municipal courts of the jurisdictions that make up Cuyahoga County. The cost that we pay in conjunction with the county for the Family Justice Center ensures that the victims and child victims and the elder victims within the city receive these victim advocate benefits. Whereas if we, the city, had its own victim advocate operations, the cost of that would be much more significant than the cost sharing at the Family Justice Center.
Well, Mr. Chairman, there's one thing to ask us to pay for or help provide if we were asking to pay for a service. But to pay for rent, plus utilities, that's different, right? I don't think anybody would balk at providing services, but providing rent and utilities, and it only increases every year. So when does it stop? So, Mr. Chairman, I'm hesitant on this one at this point, but thank you very much.
So if we can get that agreement, I do want to make sure we underscore that domestic violence is real in our community. And I do want to make sure that when we did originally have the conversation around this Family Justice Center, a lot of these services that Safety Director is talking about were not happening in Cleveland. It's one of the reasons why Judge Adrian kind of spearheaded and really worked closely with the administration to do that. But I will say this, I do want to make sure that if we can get a copy of the original agreement, because I think the councilman does have a point. We do need to make sure that we're not overcompensating for something that should be a county service. So I just want to make sure we look at that. But I am encouraging us to really make sure that we at least get this through finance, because it's important that we make sure that we have services in place for these domestic violence, child abuse, and elder abuse cases.
If I can, to the chair, again, I have to underscore and overscore the importance of, we're going to provide information as requested that we have, again, just through this year in a service provided through the Family Justice Center, almost 2,000, folks here in the city of Cleveland. Well, 1,198, so that's actually gone through there. Yeah. So, and again, that's just through September.
All right. Councilwoman Jasmine Santana.
Thank you, Chief, and good segue. So through the chair to the Chief, first of all, I love your badge there, breast cancer, very pink. On that point, the number that you shared, is that county or is that just for city clients?
To the chair, Council Member Santana, it's a really great question, and the information we have here is walking from our city, the city of Cleveland.
Okay. What is that number again?
1,198.
90, and that's year to date from January till
That's through
now?
September, yes, ma'am.
Through September?
Yes.
Okay. You brought up a point, President, reminder that we allocated ARPA dollars to rape crisis, the canopy, and what was the other one? Oh, domestic journey. I'm curious to know, when does the client go to the county versus go and receive those services? Because it was my understanding they also navigate these clients through the process.
To the chair of the council, Member Santana, I'm not quite sure that whole process, how that works, and when those particular services kick in. Relative to the Family Justice Center, I think that may be all inclusive of that to make sure that those particular clients and the victims are receiving the appropriate services.
Chief, if we could, I think it would be helpful if the body, especially the safety committee, but make an invite to the entire body to at least do a tour of the Family Justice Center. I know privacy and everything else is always at the utmost, but I think that'd be important.
Sure.
And then number two, is my understanding, Councilwoman, that all of those kind of social service agencies are embedded in there.
They're wrapped in.
So not only is it just county workers in there, but all of these other individual groups like Rape Crisis and others, I don't know who all is in there, but it's supposed to be like a one-stop shop for all of these different groups.
To the council, to the chair, of the council member, that's absolutely right. It's so supposed to be, and the premise behind that is a one-stop shop for it. So some of the agencies in there, the Cuyahoga County Witness Victim Services Center, Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center, Frontline Services, Cleveland Division of Police, Cuyahoga County Division of Family and Children's Services, Ohio Crime Victim Justice Center. So you have quite a bit of different agencies that's in there providing services to our citizens here.
Got it. Thank you, Chief. President, I'll just say this. In my 6 years here, and I brought this up before, I feel like there's such a huge disconnect between the county and the city. I know that there's duplication of services taking place, and so I don't know what the right approach. I know we've talked to Executive Ronayne on, like, what does that look like moving forward with council, but this comes up, I mean, just most recently, Jobs and Family Services, they closed all the local offices, so now we have residents that are going to downtown. They don't have access to parking. They don't have bus passes. services. So now they're waiting for a response, calls, and so the access is just made more difficult. And during this time, especially after COVID, which I don't understand why we're moving backward rather than moving forward. So, President, under your leadership, I don't know if anything that you could suggest, but we really do need to work better with the county and really understanding how our services align.
And
So,
I'm glad
I'll
that you
close
mentioned that. And that's a great point, Councilwoman, because I've had conversations with the county exec, have conversations with the mayor, and have conversations with my counterpart, Council President Pernell Jones. And all of us agree that we have to have more of a seamless conversation and process, because Councilman Casey is right. We're getting asked to do more social service than we have ever been asked to do as a city. And quite frankly, we're not funded that way. Because when we have to fund these social services, it takes away from our ability to focus on infrastructure, on economic development, job creation, and some of the other things. And I know that the authors of county reform wanted to create a government that they felt was more efficient for several reasons, but I can tell you that the yeoman's job for the county is supposed to be the social service safety net. And we are fastly becoming more about social service and funding that than anything else. And we've had those conversations, so Councilwoman, we definitely will be following up with Mr. Ronayne and also them about that.
Thank you, President. I just want to add one last thing.
Sure.
Because, once again, I speak the language, I end up serving county residents and city residents.
Right.
And also, we end up allocating funding for social services because the messaging is this will service your residents in your neighborhood. So just want to add that.
Great point, Councilwoman.
President, if I may, I just want to speak upon it because I think that it's important to do it here, is that the Family Justice Center is that bridge point for victims that does work in the way that we need it to work. I've been a prosecutor for more than a decade. I've done municipal court and common pleas, the victims advocate services to the victim advocate services, the victim advocate services to domestic violence victims and to child victims is significant. And the Family Justice Center facilitates a way so that these folks don't have to drive all over the city or the county for services. They can go to one place and these people come to them. And it's the salaries are paid by the county, the benefits are paid by the county, the resources is paid by the county. We do pay our share of our rent and the share of utilities, and in large part, again, that's because of the significant services that we receive at the municipal court.
Okay, got it. I have Councilman Conwell, then Councilman Casey.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I like this. I sit back, I read it and everything, and you're right. You and I had the conversations about social services. Sometimes it's integrated over into the city. Our residents call us for services. But what I want to see through the chair, who's championing this? Are you championing this, Chief of Police?
To the chair, one of several, yes, sir.
And you on that project team with the county? You guys see anybody talking?
To the chair, Councilman Conwell. I'm not on the committee or chair with the council, no.
Who's on the committee?
To the chair, Councilman. I'm not quite sure which committee you're referencing.
Well, I'm talking about for this right here. You're not just going to pass it and sit back and not put systems in place to push it. So somebody is going to be over it, monitoring it or something.
If I may, Councilman.
Yeah, through the chair.
Is that the funding for this, Councilman through the chair, comes from public safety,
right?
Or the general fund. The courts administer it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a function of going through the courts. So the advocates work with the prosecutors who are under the law department, and the courts are they oversee it. So it's a collaboration between public safety, the law department, the courts, and the county prosecutor's office.
So pushing this, how do you know is this going to be successful or not? That's one of the points I'm getting to. Cutting down on domestic violence. You have to, like, if we know domestic violence is at 100%, let's say that and then within 6 months it's down to 90 or 85%, the goal or the objective that we're trying to reach. So who's monitoring that, Mr. Chair?
So our goal is to always to work to deter domestic violence. What you're talking about, Councilman, if I may, I mean this in,
No, I need to know.
is you're addressing more of the psychology of domestic violence. Domestic violence victims are teenagers in high schools.
Right.
That goes through the juvenile court. They're in the municipal court. They're in the common pleas court. The all-hands approach in addressing the reduction of domestic violence has to contemplate the pipeline into domestic violence. As we deter, it's replaced.
Right.
So without these services, it would escalate through the roof. And then
you doing prevention.
we would be measuring our attempts to combat domestic violence without these services by the fatalities. This allows us to combat it and put things in place so that there is not an escalation of fatalities and continuation of victims.
Right. So to my point is that we got to put in the fatherhood group. You got to have them in the mix, dealing with the best, because the best thing a father can do for his children is to respect their mother. So knowing that, and then we know Al Grimes, that's part of his charge, he has to be in there. He got to be in that mix, and you got to figure out some kind of way how to have the fatherhood initiative in the mix. Through the chair.
To the chair, to Councilman Conwell. Conwell, sorry. Of course,
okay.
Yeah, Conwell. Yeah, I
Please.
think it's important what you just articulated. Obviously, having a father in the homes is vital and crucial. Hopefully, for preventative measures for domestic violence. I think our success is being able to obviously prevent domestic violence from happening, setting up systems in place, as you mentioned, to give people and give individuals resources to deal with issues within their family unit. And then hopefully nothing like that occurs as far as domestic violence, but if it does, or hopefully it does and it's prevented, that we have systems in place to give people the services, wraparound services they need to prevent it, to give them the counseling, the victim aid that they need to get out those type of situations. And hopefully we'll be successful in doing that. But again, it's just making sure that we have systems in place, make sure that we have services in place, provide to victims of domestic violence, and also services in place to give folks what they need so these type of things don't occur in the first place.
Because through the chair to the chief and the safety director, if you had in the scope, because I don't know, I haven't seen your proposal. I mean, you bring this to us, but I have not, I just don't know the evaluation or whatever. But if you had, like with the fatherhood group, let's say you had, you stabilize a man working with the fatherhood initiative, Inside Outside Dads. Inside Outside Dads, you working with fathers that's in prison, and then when the fathers, they can keep a relationship with their children, and they don't want to go back to prison by attacking the children's mother and all these kind of things constantly, because a lot of the guys never had a father to work with them or a father in the household. That stuff is important, keeping domestic violence down. And then, because it gotta be in there. We can't have the absence of that.
Councilman, through the chair, I agree with you. The place for the programming is through the courts, through the county, connection of services, through the prosecutor's office. We made the point a few times that the police are reactive.
Right.
Police are called when domestic violence occurs. The contacting of the work to make sure that there is not an occurrence are done by those mental health professionals and those services provided by the Family Justice Center, measured by the courts, right? and part of the rehabilitation process within the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. That's where those services rest.
Right.
It's not with necessarily police and public safety. Within the city, there is youth and family success. That's that violent crime component. That's outside of the Department of Public Safety. There's more. I believe it's a connection of community relations, but the implementation of services and the measurement of those services are from the entities who work with the county at the Family Justice Center and those who are engaged with the courts. So a fatherhood initiative that is not already involved should contact the Family Justice Center and the courts to find out where they fit into that. Where they fit would not be for police or public safety to say.
You know what? I get that to the chair, to the safety director. I was going to have you guys, I was going to ask you guys to bring it up to them. I mean, you champion this right here, right? To the chair. So if you champion it, you have them to take a look at it, and then when they take a look at it, we see where we fit in. But I can make the phone call myself. I don't want to meddle into it to make the phone call, but I can make the phone call and call the meeting myself to make sure that they're intertwined with that. Because you got to have it, man. I mean, not you, but I wanted you to champion it, to at least talk with them about it, because you're putting together systems.
Absolutely. And
to the chair.
And I would tell you that this body will have in front of it at some point, I don't know the date, all of us who are engaged in the Violence Against Women Act.
Right.
So in front of this body is going to be public safety, prosecutor's office, Cleveland Municipal Court, personnel from the Family Justice Center. Will all be in front of this body.
Man, you know what I'm going to do is through the chair is when you push this, reach out to them and have the meeting and the conversation so it can be baked in there with them, because the absence of the fathers and you trying to push domestic violence. So, I mean, because it's not your job is to arrest. But we also got to look at prevention also. And I just probably had to get ahead of it.
No, but
to the chair.
And I can tell you, Councilman, that the Department of Public Safety, Safety Admin, is looking at prevention in ways that it hasn't in the past, and I'd be happy to have that discussion with you.
All right. I mean, I'll call you up. I'll call you up on the cell phone.
Give me a couple days.
Yeah. We'll work out and we'll talk about it.
Thank you.
But Councilman, I do want to make sure that you made a very critical point that I hope that didn't fly over people's head, but that there are a lot of men being abused too.
Right.
And I hope that people realize that domestic violence is not just a one-way street, men beating up on women. And a lot of these fathers need to understand their rights too, because a lot of times their children is held over their head as, as you can't see your child if you say or do this, that, and everything else. So Councilman Conwell is exactly right about making sure that we have that kind of rights for fathers and other men, because they get it, they catch it too.
And you know what, Mr. President, looking at domestic violence, a child see his father beating up on his children, on his mother or her mother, and then the child isn't going to school. So how can a child study while witnessing things like that?
Right.
And then some of the young boys think that's the way to go, is to beat up on mama because they witnessed dad doing that.
Right.
So, if you're talking about prevention, you gotta include the man, you have to include the father into that recipe, and I'll have a conversation
Totally
and
get it.
probably convene a meeting. Thank you.
Totally get it, and definitely if we could follow up with the councilman on that, because he does bring background in that, that'd be great. I have Councilman Casey, then Polensek is going to close us out.
I'm good.
Okay, Councilman Mike Polensek, you have a question, and you wanted to miss something.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I support the police, I support the partnership, and I think responding to Councilman Casey, one of the issues that came up was that the majority of clients in the facility are Cleveland residents. So that was one of the biggest issues that came up. Just one question, two last questions for Chief. As of today, do you happen to know what the present ranks are within the Division of Police? How many officers we have?
To the chair, Councilman Polensek. Last I checked, and the report's being updated today. The last report I received is 1,199, but that number may change once I get the most updated one. But
Okay. And then as it pertains to the homicide rate, do you have that latest figure? I know last week it was 150, but has there been a change?
To the chair, to the council member, yes, it's currently 152.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you. Family Justice Center is a very good project, and I hope that everybody is in support of it, but can we make sure that we give that information that Councilman Casey would like to see, so that we can make sure that we understand the contract and how long are we in this for, or, how's this supposed to work, okay?
To the
Please
chair,
sign on.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Hearing no other questions, ordinance number 1004-2023 stands approved. We are now going to go to ordinance number 1005. Thank you, Mr. Gelman. 1005-2023 by council members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 6 of ordinance number 866-2021 passed October 18, 2021, relating to applying for and accepting a grant from the United States Department of Homeland Security for the FY21 Port Security Grant Program and purchase of a police boat. And I believe you brought in Captain Simon with you for this.
That's correct. Yeah, join us at the table, chair and the council members, is Captain Robert Simon from the Cleveland Division of Police.
Okay. So you want to go into this, because I see it's not an amount, but can you tell us, we're just giving you the authority to go and seek a grant for this, right?
Sure, Chair. To the chair, ordinance number 1005-2023, if passed by council, would amend section 6 of ordinance number 866-2021 to allow funding from other sources approved by the Director of Finance for the purchase of a police boat for the Division of Police. All other sections of ordinance number 866-2021 will be unchanged. The Division of Police received a port security grant in the amount of $625,592 to be used toward the funding of a police boat. Additional funding of approximately $156,400 is needed to complete the purchase of the police boat. The Division of Police is responsible for all law enforcement activities within the City of Cleveland, which also includes the Port of Cleveland zone in Lake Erie. The Division of Police uses regular maritime patrols and coordinates operations with all our law enforcement partners, including the U.S. Coast Guard and other federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, for patrolling and necessary interdiction of vessels traveling into the United States across the international border with Canada. The new police boat will be a significant upgrade over the current police boat and will include current technology and equipment that will provide a Division of Police with a robust tool to be used to combat crime. This greatly increase our ability to quickly respond to emerging threats and complement the capabilities of our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, resulting in a more secure port.
Okay. Just a couple of things. So if I'm understanding this clearly, our portion that we would need to come up with is about 100 and what?
100, to the chair, $156,400.
So that's the part that we have, 156,000 change. And then how much?
To chair, that's what we need to purchase the boat.
Okay, and then the total amount is 400 and what?
The amount is $592.
Okay. All right. So that money is coming out of the general fund. That's our match for the 156.
No, to we received a port security grant of a total of $625,592 towards the purchase of a police boat.
Gotcha.
That was back in 2021.
Okay.
Subsequent to that, we need since it was initially secured in 2021, there are additional amounts that we have to take here because of technology and other issues. So we need an additional $156,400 to actually purchase the boat.
That's what I'm trying to get to. So this is an addendum to what we originally had, because as everything else, costs have gone up, technology has changed. So where we originally supported this in 2021, it was 400 and something thousand, but now we need another 156,000 for doing that?
To the chair, that's correct.
So, one, I'm glad that we're getting the most updated technology and everything else, but why did it take 2 years for us to be able to secure this boat?
The original grant that we received was the 625,592. The amount that we're before this body today, President, is for the 156,400. The reason why it took so long was significant supply chain issues. You just couldn't get the parts. Production had halted, and the amount now reflects the increase that has gone along with everything else post-COVID. The inflation of everything else is to receive the boat. But to answer your question as pointedly as possible, is that there was no way to produce the boat because the parts that we needed were not being manufactured.
And I'm glad that you are mentioning that. I'm starting to have a problem with the industry because we should start locking in these prices because we're starting to get hit with a lot of people coming back to us because they're saying cost overruns because of materials and interest rates and everything else. And in my opinion, if we lock something in, we should be locking it in. And I understand that we're trying to get more up-to-date technology and that we have parts that were down, but that's saying to me like a supplier problem and a vendor problem, and we're bearing the cost for a vendor problem. But I digress. I just hope that we are looking at that. The only other thing that I wanted to ask, Fire has a boat, top-notch, brand new equipment. Is it possible, or have we looked at trying to have joint ops or looking at if we can make some joint purchases for things like this so that we can have maybe cross-train or cross-protect or do something like that? You guys understand what I'm asking?
Council President, through the President, is that give me one moment. Thank you. The operational functioning of the fireboat and the police boat are completely different, right? Is that sometimes they do work together. They do work together for water rescue. They work together with the Coast Guard on patrols. They do work together. But the function of these two divisions in their use of the boats are completely separate. They can't be married to that extent.
Okay.
To the chair, Councilman, the director's absolutely right. Different platforms for the boats, fire suppression, but they also have a dive team. We have a dive team, and we do work together. But as the director succinctly put it, just totally different platforms, and at times totally different missions.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, I mean, I'm not expecting you guys to be Miami Vice or anything else, but are we actually getting interdiction? Are we getting drugs and other contraband? Have we ever had any numbers of seeing what we're actually seizing that's trying to come into our ports, or is that more of a port authority conversation?
Councilman, that'll be more of a port authority conversation and a conversation with the U.S. Attorney's Office. As we stated during the Safety Committee, the number one benefit of having the police presence on the water as well with the Coast Guard is the deterrent that stops folks from using our lake as an avenue for human trafficking, drugs, or illegal entrance into the United States.
Okay.
That was it, yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Councilman Palencia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard this piece extensively in the committee. We discussed it thoroughly, and again, we support that. We also raised the questions about the additional costs, but it was explained to us where we came to support it. So I wholeheartedly support it and hope that we can. It's going to take approximately 2 years to get the vote.
To the chair, to the council, that's correct.
Okay, so then again, in the interim time, as the council president suggested, if there's anything we do to partner with other, I know the existing boat is docked down at the U.S. Coast Guard, but it's out of the water right now? Is that correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, yeah, our boat currently is in dry dock. We have it wrapped and winterized for the season. However, our crews are currently working with both sheriffs, other agencies on the Navy ship that's docked at the port now, providing security.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wholeheartedly support the piece. And I just had before the safety director leaves and the chief, I had another follow-up question for them outside of that.
Okay, do we have any more questions? I don't see any more questions. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1005-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Council Polinsky, you have a brief
Thank you.
miscellaneous.
Briefly, to the safety director and the chief, whoever can answer. I was told last week that the Ohio Highway Patrol is no longer with their Operation Surge here. I wrote them, but I have not had a response from them. Can you tell me what's going on? And the members of the committee?
Yeah, to the chair, through the chair and Councilman Polensek and other members of the committee, the current surge program operation with the State Highway Patrol has ceased for the year. However, they still have a contingent of state troopers that are in the area that still work with our specialized units. So although the surge is done for the year, we still have our officers who are out there daily. We also have organized violent crime reduction team details that we have scheduled for next month and also through December as well.
Okay, and is the initiative by Pete Elliott's U.S. Marshal still in place?
To the chair, yes. I don't want it lost, to the chair and the councilman, I don't want it lost that anyone to think that we don't have current details or programs in place. Our partnership with the Marshal Service is consistent. It's ongoing. We still are looking for individuals wanted for violent crimes, such as homicide, rape, false assault. We also have partnerships with the ATF, as well as the FBI, Adult Parole Authority, DEA, Secret Service. We have various operations that's consistently taking place throughout the city on a regular basis.
No, Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues, and to the director and to the chief, because I had heard the governor point blank say, and the colonel in charge, that they would be here as long as it was requested of them. And so now, and I say that in due respect, in the last 2 weeks, we've had a problem with the Kia boys again in the 5th District. And then over the weekend, I had a dear friend who they attempted to carjack her. Again, 4 armed suspects. And I'm greatly concerned about the visibility in the street. I'm really concerned. You indicated a moment ago we're at 1,199. We're below 1,200 for the first time since 1920. So I'm concerned about police patrols, not only myself, but my colleagues are greatly concerned about the visibility. And we saw with the Ohio Highway Patrol what a great job they did working with your folks. But I'm just wondering, is there something, because I think you were with me when the governor said, we'll be here as long as we're needed. And was there something that happened?
Chair, through Council President, I can tell you that just because Operation Surge concludes does not mean that the partnership between Ohio State Highway Patrol has ended.
Okay.
Through the chief and through the mayor's relationship with the governor, and letting him know that what we need here in the city is that organized violent crime reduction initiatives, our organized traffic initiatives are going to continue. Operation Surge was a singular operation for a period of time, but their presence in the city is going to be as needed, as requested terms.
Okay, what I would hope, in all due respect, I would hope that you'd ask them again to come back in here, however they can do it in that force continuing they had, because I saw the difference. I don't know about any of my other colleagues. I saw the difference in the streets with that traffic enforcement. It was a big enhancement, big improvement. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I was with him. The governor did say that. So, just want to make sure that, everybody is clear that we were expecting to not maybe have a consistent presence, but that we would have an intermittent presence. At least that's what we expected. So.
To the chair, councilman, certainly understand. We still have our partnership with the State Highway Patrol. Like I said, a surge may have concluded for now, but they're still here to have the contingent of officers that are assigned here on a regular basis, and we'll still have our partnerships with them.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Just one question, Mr. Chair, really quick to the team here through the chair. I know that the sheriff, in response to the shooting that happened downtown in the warehouse district, the sheriff department placed special patrols down through downtown. What has the communication been with the sheriff's office about helping us patrol and do work in our neighborhoods? Back when I was on county council, they had the impact unit, which I don't believe is still around. So that impact unit really did a lot of work. In fact, it was when you were the commander and I served on county council, I think that I got the communication started between us to say, hey, can we get him over? So through the chair to the team here, what is that discussion with Sheriff Patel? Like, that's cool that we got him downtown, right, in the warehouse district, but, you know, these neighborhoods are faced with real issues, not real issues, but issues just as well as the downtown community is facing in our neighborhoods every single day.
Councilman, through Council President.
I can use them over in Arlington, where I got a resident who, you know, you all are doing, when I call the 5th District, responsive, Detective Murphy, Sergeant Bays, Monty, the team is on top of it. However, they are spread thin. They are spread very thin.
We are, Councilman, through Council President, we will be having conversations with the sheriff in the coming week or so. They're short-staffed as well. They have limited staffing, and one of the things that we are going to talk about is what the cities of Cleveland's needs are, how the sheriffs can do that, and what we can do for the sheriff to help assist him as well. So there is a conversation that's going to be happening, and the heart of that discussion is going to be the safety and security of the entire city.
Good. Thank you for that, Mr. President. You know, I want to make sure I put that out there because, you know, although it's very important to support the warehouse district and other districts around our city, it is the folks who live in these neighborhoods as well, you know, who are, I got a resident on Woodside, on Edmonton, you know, she done had bullets come through her house 5 times in the last 3 months. Come outside, bullet holes in her car. In the house, come across her refrigerator, right? Now, what if she had been in the kitchen at that time? Dead. You know, you know, these issues that we're having, you know, I'm not going to beat the issue, but, you know, we need some help, you know, and that support from the Highway Patrol really made an impact, right? I'm telling you, y'all don't, maybe y'all know, maybe y'all don't know, but, you know, folks, you know how it go. They get to call each other in the neighborhood. They get to, you know, pulling over and seeing each other on the side of the streets. Hey, you better not go that way, right? You know, I see it. I know what's happening, right? And so, you know, having that sheriff presence, even if they rotate the downtown unit, you know, don't keep them downtown. Move them around to other parts of the city, east and west, where the help is needed. So, you know, hopefully that conversation goes well with the sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1004-2023 stands approved. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Much. All right, next up is ordinance number 1081-2023 by council members Gray, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into an agreement or agreements with Cuyahoga Metropolitan Authority regarding the public improvement of constructing infrastructure improvements as part of the Woodhill Choice Project to, among other things, allow CMHA to make public improvement to Woodhill Choice Estates to apply for and accept any gifts or grants for this purpose from any public or private entity authorizing any relative agreements and to cause payment to CMHA for the city's portion of the improvement. Director.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, we've been working with CMHA on the Woodhill Choice Project. Way back in 2019, Council authorized the Director of Community Development to apply to the Department of HUD as a co-applicant and neighborhood implementation entity for the Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. We were fortunate enough to win that award, and the lead applicant is Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority. And among other obligations, the city agreed to provide $15.5 million of city capital funds to break up the super blocks that make up the Woodhill Estates and provide streetscape amenities to Woodland and Woodhill, which are the major thoroughfares on either side of the estates. So we've budgeted for this over 2 rounds of capital dollars so far. We have 1 more to go. This ordinance would allow us to provide that money to CMHA. We've been working with them, reviewing the plans. We are in alignment on the design of the streets. The streets would include all in the public right-of-way, Morris Black Road between Woodland and Carmel Road, and then 5 new streets, which they've designed, as I said, to break up the super block. It includes all the items that you'd expect on a new street: new sidewalks, multi-use paths, ADA curb ramps, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water main, street lighting, electric power ducts, communication ducts, and they are currently finalizing design, expect to go into construction in the springtime. So that's why we're seeking authorization to move forward with an agreement with CMHA for the 15.5 for the infrastructure.
All right, and just for clarity, we have already approved the 15.5. This is basically for us to actually approve the work moving forward and the contract with CMHA to do the work.
Mr. Chairman, yes, and also to enter into that agreement to hand over the dollars to CMHA. Yes.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, are we going to be having any monitoring or control over the quality of the work, the design, the street name, all of the above? How do we make sure that we vet all of those things to make sure that we understand how it should go?
Answer is yes to all the above, but Rick, why don't you talk about the process we've been in so far?
Sure. To the chair, we've been reviewing this design for approximately a year or so already, and working with them closely because we knew that it was fast-tracked. So
Speak into your microphone.
I'm sorry. It's been a fast-track process, so we've been working with them continually. They're sitting at about 100% plans at this point in time, so they can be ready to bid. We've talked to their construction crews about having specifications that allow the money to be spent in a proper manner, and then for the bid process only, that is approved by HUD, which makes it all okay with us. We will have inspectors out there making sure the roadway is done properly. It'll eventually have to come back and get dedicated, so we have to ensure that it is built to city specifications. In terms of naming streets, that probably will have to come through our survey department, so we'll be able to see what they're looking at to name those 5 new streets.
All right, because there's 5 total new streets, right?
Yep, they're A, B, C, D, and E right now.
Okay, and then want to make sure diversity, equity, and inclusion. Even though we're doing $15.5 million to CMHA, are they still going to be required? And it's CMHA, not the community builders, right? It's not their developer, which is the community developer. It's CMHA.
So, Mr. Chairman, our money will go to CMHA. They will contract with the community rebuilders to build it. I forget, do you remember which construction company they have on board?
Marus. They have
yeah.
Marus. Okay, so Marus will be handling this because they've been doing a good job of making sure that they have diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just want to make sure that we're not passing this 3 or 4 agencies away and then somebody say, oops, we don't have a DEI clause, and then in the middle of a predominantly African-American community, we don't have any diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's important to make sure that we have that agreement up front.
Completely understood, Councilman. Those requirements would be in the agreement. We're allowing CMHA to follow their own rules related to diversity and equity in contracting. We're not placing our rules on them, but as a government entity, they have, through their board, established their diversity and equity goals for their construction projects, and that's what will be documented in the agreement. I don't have those right here, but I can provide those to you as well, what CMHA's contracting goals
I can get it. Well, I still want to, if you can get it for me, but I just, I don't know how we have done these in the past, but it's my experience and it's best to keep it within the city because some of these other organizations and agencies do not have the community benefits agreement and the diversity, equity, and inclusion goals that we have in the city.
And Mr. Chairman, we thought long and hard about doing the project ourselves or handing it over to CMHA, but this particular project is so tightly coordinated with both the relocations and the demolition
and everything
else,
else.
and then the streets and then the new construction, that it really made sense in this instance to work with CMHA as the master developer.
Totally get it and appreciate that, and very close to this project, as you know, for various reasons. Okay. Yep. Any other questions, Councilman Hairston? I know that you vetted this in your committee.
No. Move for adoption.
Okay, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1081-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. I'm going to go to 1080-2023. One second. Next one is 1080-2023 by Council Members Casey, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more agreements with the City of Lakewood regarding the public improvement of resurfacing Lakewood Heights Boulevard to, among other things, allow Lakewood to make the public improvement to the City of Cleveland on Lakewood Heights Boulevard between Jocelyn Road and Berea Road and cause payment to the City of Lakewood for the city's portion of the improvement. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so as you mentioned, this is for the improvement of Lakewood Heights Boulevard from Jocelyn Road to Berea Road in both the cities of Lakewood and Cleveland. The city limits kind of jog through the site such that a portion of the straightaway of Lakewood Heights Boulevard is in the city of Cleveland, a portion is in Lakewood. The portion that crosses over the railroad tracks is Lakewood, and then the hook that takes you back down to Berea Road is City of Cleveland. So we've agreed to split the cost 50-50, which is what the geography purports for the city limits. Design will be coming in January through March. These are slab replacements, so they're able to go out to bid pretty quickly, and they intend to have construction between May of '24 to October of '24, and have it completed this coming year. So with that, happy to take any questions.
This went through DPS, Councilman Harrison, and then also it's Councilman Casey, Board, Councilman Casey.
Fully supportive. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1080-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. All right, the next one is ordinance number 1085-2023 by Council Members Casey, Sides, Bishop, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance giving consent of the City of Cleveland to the County of Cuyahoga for the resurfacing of West 140th Street from Puritas Avenue to Lakewood Heights Boulevard, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into agreements to apply for and accept an allocation of county motor vehicle license tax funds, to apply for and accept any gifts or grants from any public or private entity, and to cause payment to the county for the city's share of the improvement. Director.
Mr. Chairman, West 140th Street is a county road. They're going to let the construction project, it'll run from Curtis Avenue to the south up to Lakewood Heights Boulevard to the north. The total construction costs are about $7.5 million for this 2.5 mile reconstruction. Our city share is approximately $1 million. We don't know the exact amount until it goes out to bid, but this will be a contribution of 60% of the design costs and 50% of the construction costs. Construction will not be until July of 2026 through November of 2027.
Okay. It's Councilman Casey Day. Councilman Casey.
It's the only way I can get a road repaved in Ward 16, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely, 100%. Thank you to the administration for your portion of this. Fully supportive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next one is ordinance number 1089-2023 by Council Members McCormick, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance giving consent of the City of Cleveland to the Director of Transportation. I need you. We need you. Okay. Giving consent to the City of Cleveland to the Director of Transportation of the State of Ohio to resurface Quigley Road and West 3rd Street in the City of Cleveland, authorizing agreements and causing payment to the state for the city's share of improvement. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this is in Ward 3. It is Quigley Road from Clark Avenue to West 3rd Street, and then West 3rd Street from Quigley to Stones Levee. This is on the NOACA tip. It is funded about 2.5 million of federal funds, and then the road and bridge funds from bond issuance would be right around $647,566. Again, that's an estimate until it gets bid out. Our construction share would go into the construction that's expected in April of 2024 to September of 2024. And this is about approximately 1.84 miles of reconstruction.
Okay. Any questions regarding 1085-2023? Councilwoman
I don't have a question. I
Santana.
just have more of a comment. Thank you, Mr. President. So I know that Quigley is not in my ward, but it's adjacent, very close. And I normally get, not from you guys, just from other departments, like late notice so that I could share with my residents. Will a notice be sent out before the construction starts? And what is that timeline? When does that start so that I could be aware?
Short answer is, through the chairman and the councilwoman, yes, we will give out notice. We're also trying to be more cognizant of neighboring wards when we do give out notice. So bid should be around March of 2024, which is when we would know whether we have a bid that comes in within budget. And then we'll be able to give out notice for the anticipated start date. So if the bids come in good, then probably around March, April, we'll be giving out notice.
Okay. Thank you, Director. And if you could send me just anything for the newsletter, because by March, I would say my newsletter goes out. So anything prior to that.
Got
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1085-2023 stands approved. I believe that is all from Capitol.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Finance? Says ordinance number 1235-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay as moral claims the sums opposite the names of the claimants. All right, Mr. Gentile, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. To the chair and to the committee members, this is our moral claims that we do a few times a year. We have 3 claims that were approved on the October 12th moral claims meeting, 2 for public works, 1 for public utilities, and the grand total of the 3 claims combined are $4,086.80.
Okay. And just to let everybody know, we do have 2 council members that sit on that committee along with the director, the moral claims, the law director, and then Mr. Romero from the risk. From the risk. What is this? The risk?
Risk management.
Risk management.
Yes.
So that's who looks at these cases. And there's a lot of cases that we don't always approve because sometimes the evidence is not there. So just want to give everybody a heads up on what this is, okay? All right, any questions regarding ordinance number 1235-2023? Councilman Hairston.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the explanation about how the Moral Claims Committee operates. But, I have an issue through the chair to Mr. Gentile, and this is also for our law department as well. Back in September, I saw the news story how the Cleveland homeowner was offered $12,000 for the sewage back up into her basement. There was one offered, and that was declined. There was another offer, and the city, made several attempts to resolve it, which is a good thing for that resident. Happy that the resident was able to achieve success with the city of Cleveland and his moral claims, the way we do moral claims. But in my ward on Haldane, 2 years ago now, I submitted correspondence to the law department and the Department of Public Utilities because we had a street where the water line had ruptured almost 10 times within 3-year period, right? That's how many times they stayed on that street repairing the water main. Water crews respond immediately, but unfortunately, the last time where the sewer line, well, not the sewer line, but the water line had broken, it hydroplaned the sewer, which backed up into the residents' basements, caused a lot of damage to these senior and low-income residents who live on Haldane. Some of them to this day, are still have not gotten all of the issues repaired in their homes. We denied them, but then we turn around and pay someone else with the same issue that has occurred. So this is also for, I think, Mr. President, who's on the committee as well, and who else was on the committee?
No, I wasn't on the committee then.
Not then, but who else was on the committee? Law department, whoever else?
Law department, risk management, and then 2 members of council.
Okay.
So it's the council president, 2 members of council, the law director or designee, the finance director,
Sure.
and his designee.
Got it.
Mr. Romero
Got it.
represents the finance director.
And through the chair to Mr. Gentile and others who may be here, who's also on the committee, I'm not even sure whether they had even reached the committee, right? They initially, denied the responsibility. Then the utilities said, well, that has to go to law. Law said we'll contact the utilities. So, the runaround was being played. But, these residents are still suffering for this issue, right? How do we support one and don't support the other? When we knew that it was an issue of our old and decrepit, infrastructure that's on that street. The same year afterwards, after this happened, we came back and replaced the entire water main and the sewer on the street for that reason, because it was outdated. It was on that 5-year capital plan that the water department puts out, But I'm not going to stop. I'm going to send another email requesting that the departments look at this, because these residents should be made whole. Period. If we're doing it for one, we need to do it for all.
To the chair of the councilman, yeah, I would send a request again. Hopefully, it gets all the way to the committee. It should get to the committee. Sure. Now, I'm not sure who other council members are on the committee. Sometimes at this current one, I think 2 or 3 claims were denied at the October 12th because they didn't have the evidence. But it sounds like there's a lot of evidence that there was a city problem here. I'm not familiar with it, but
gotcha.
I think just submit it one more time. The law department's over here. He can take notes on this. I think they should take a second look at this and just determine.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Gentile. I won't continue down this path, but in closing, Mr. Chair, we clearly had an issue on the street for a long period of time. We had not gotten around to making the repairs. Once we did, they haven't had a problem since then.
Okay, great.
All right, and so thank you for that.
All right, thanks.
And Councilman, just for your point, I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things that we talked about, and I know Mr. Romero can attest to this, is really doing a better job of understanding the origin of the complaint and how it's disposed of, because what I noticed is that is several ways that they have on-roads to moral claims. And a lot of times, the step that's missing is the council person. And as it reiterated in the meeting, the council people are the ones that's going to get that question at the end of the day. Yeah. So we're going to look at our processes to make sure that the council people, whether they make a complaint or whether they are involved at some point along in the chain, that's documented to make sure that we understand that this is a councilmatic issue, because that was definitely brought up in our meeting last week. And we'll discuss that some more, how that could look, because you're exactly right, okay?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1235-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Next up is ordinance number 1236-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to employ one or more consultants for travel agents to provide travel booking services and products for all city employees for a period of 1 year, with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance. Mr. Gentile.
Yep, through the chair of the committee members. What we're going to try to do is streamline the travel process at the city. Right now, it's very archaic. It's very old. We have bottlenecks that start jamming people up. And, some people show up at conferences. They may not have the thing booked, and, we get calls. So it's a process that's very archaic. What we're trying to do is we're trying to go out for a travel agent that will be a one-stop travel agent. They'll have online booking. They'll pay all the bills that we would normally pay and they'll invoice us once a month, because now we're tracking down all these charges that we make on our own, and they'll send us a detail who traveled, what the amounts are. So what we're trying to accomplish is to send an RFP out to travel agencies asking for this service, and that it interfaces with our accounting system. So like you'll have to have an approved travel encumbrance. The vendor will see that you're approved for X amount. They will be told that you cannot, like, you can't fly first class, or you can't do things like this. You still have to have an economical way to travel. So it's got to be sort of the most economical way to do so, and that's the direction that will be built into this. We're basically looking to get more mainstream on travel citywide, just to alleviate problems that we've had for years in this area. Thank you.
Couple of questions. Why isn't the mayor's name on this? Why is it just mine? And did you guys also have the mayor put this on here, or could somebody call and see if the mayor's on this, especially if we're talking about travel arrangements for, because this includes his office and also all of the administration side, right?
Yep.
So can we make sure that the mayor understands that, since that's something that they're requesting from the administration side, that goes on his name as well? Number two, I thought that Mr. Reynolds kind of governed all of that. So it used to be streamlined. When did we move away from it being streamlined?
To the chair, he's still in charge of this. It's over the years that we've had a lot of issues with this. I mean, so he is a central person, but like he's been kind of a person, and if he tries to take a vacation day, they call him and interrupt him. So we're just moving to more of an online system, again, with proper approvals. The travel agent will not be able to book anything unless the directors and all our approvals are in for these travelers, and they'll be able to book this. He'll still get the invoices, and he'll still pay whoever we choose for this, but we're just trying to make it a little bit more efficient and our payment process a little bit easier instead of having multiple payments. Having one payment per month.
So just one thing before we move, and the estimated amount, and I'm looking at it, is $450,000, or how much is that? And current amount awarded so far is $422. How could you explain what does that mean? Is that just from 9/1/21 to 8/31/2023? That means we did $422,000 in that period of time?
No, to the chair of the council person, it's kind of hard to put a number on this, but it's going to be per traveler. They're going to charge us a service fee to do that. So we're trying to estimate by the number of travelers, and we try to come up with a number of what we think it's going to cost.
Okay, there's no number on this, though, so this is not the budget, but we'll get that budget, Terry.
Sure.
I would just tell you, this council doesn't have a big appetite for outsourcing. These are jobs and talents that I think are well within our systems to navigate. Administration has made this decision. That's what they like to do. I always respect what the administration wants to do. But if we're going to outsource, are we making sure that the companies have any DEI provisions? Are they going to make sure that we have either Hispanic women, African Americans, Asian Americans, to make sure that we have diversity, equity, and inclusion on whoever we choose? And that does have to come back before us, if I'm not mistaken, so that we can make sure we see that.
Absolutely. This is just the RFP. So yes, it'll have all the parameters we have in all our RFPs, all the OEO requirements that we take a look at as part of our scoring. So we will look at that. But again, this will not displace any city employees. We're just trying to get a website and make it kind of more like people, the federal government does it this way. We've talked to a lot of cities. It's more online now. And like right now, you have to kind of call Andre, and then he has to book it. So we're just trying to make it more efficient for the travelers to pick when they can travel, when they're taking off, instead of having to kind of go through and in between. But it won't displace any current workers. It's just going to hopefully make the travel process a little bit more.
Yeah, totally understand that and get it. I just know that a lot of travel agencies have gone out of business because most of this stuff is online, and most people book their own through apps and other things and all of that. And I understand you're trying to streamline it, so it might be best to go through another agency. I just remember that there used to be an agency that handled all of this.
We still, to the chair, we still have an agent that handles it. They just don't have an online portal. They may bid on this. That's not what we're on. We're on a paper-intensive
Okay.
program with these folks. So they may bid on this thing. We're just, again, trying to move it a little bit closer to, a little bit more technology. And a little bit
I hope that in the proposal, you guys really have clear that we want diversity, equity, and inclusion, because they're definitely, whether they have a joint venture or something, needs to make sure that it has a DEI component to that, because I know that there's travel agents that do DEI, DEI folks that do travel agency stuff, okay?
To the chair, we'll definitely have that in the
All right,
RFP.
thank you.
Yep, not a problem.
Once again, if you can make sure you check with the mayor, I think that if with these kind of issues, that he and I should be in there, be supportive of that, okay? All right,
Absolutely.
ordinance number 1236-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you, Mr. Gentile. Welcome back. Good to see you
Thank you.
doing well.
Thank you. Yeah, we got 2 more.
Oh, you got 2 more?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, they sent you to do the heavy lifting today, huh?
Yeah, I've got 4 total, but Ed's going to help me with this one.
Ed's going to help you with this one. Ed is the muscle.
Yes.
All right. Ordinance number 1237-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to employ one or more professional consultants to provide workers' compensation and actuarial services for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance.
Right. To the chair and the committee members, every 3 years we come back to renew our contract with a provider. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Romero to explain a little bit more about what services they provide to the city.
Good afternoon, Council President and committee. Yes, this is our triennial request. We go out, and what they do is they do our workers' compensation. So we don't have any actuaries actually on staff for the city, and these individuals provide those services just like an insurance company, as Ohio's workers' compensation is monopolistic, which means that the state of Ohio runs it only. There are no other vendors allowed in the state of Ohio to sell insurance. There's 4 states like that. So we're one of them. And so the other services they provide on a day-to-day basis are the claims management. So whenever a claim comes in, they go in, they follow the state laws and rules, because there's only so many days an employer has to make whether they accept or deny a claim. And so we have to meet those statutory guidelines. So every 3 years, we go out for this particular contract. And we've had 8 out of the last 10 years, we've had record years, and 14 out of the last 16. Record lows.
Awesome. Everybody knows you've been doing a great job with this. I remember when you first took it over, and everybody was having fits because you were taking pictures of people out on poles. But that was because you were doing your job, and we've had less frivolous incidents since you've been on the case. So appreciate it, Mr. Romero. Any questions regarding ordinance number 1237-2023? Councilwoman Santana, and then Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really quick, Mr. Romero. Is this different, like I've talked to some firefighters and policemen, right? And when they have claims, there's a physician that's in place and then their medical reimbursement. Does this organization handle the policeman and firefighter medical comm? Is that all streamlined through one process? Just for clarity, because I don't understand how this works.
To Council President, to Councilor Santana, yes, this organization, whoever we end up selecting, does handle claims for every single member of the city.
And are they in the city of Cleveland or in Ohio?
No, they're in Ohio.
They're in Ohio? Okay, then this is not the company I was thinking. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Anthony Hairston, Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Oh, no, I didn't have a question. I was just commenting about that. The Polaroid footage. I heard a lot about it.
It was chasing them. Mr. Romero was chasing them around with cameras, and they got their stuff together, didn't they? All right. Okay. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 1237-2023? Seeing none, thank you guys. Appreciate it, Mr. Romero. Last but not least, with finance, ordinance number 1238-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to provide the transfer and amendment of $4,700,000 within the major enterprise fund. And I believe this is the port director is going to join us at the table as well.
Yeah, to the chair, to the committee members. The airports have to do a transfer within their own funds because they have to accomplish something with this transfer. I'm going to turn it over to the airport director and our financial person, Christine, to explain what this transfer is going to accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. Gentile. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Department of Port Control is requesting authority to transfer funds within our 2023 operating budget for 3 purposes. One is to plan, design, and construct a new facility to replace an existing aging structure at Hopkins Airport. 2 is to account for non-budgeted activation of the gray lot, which is a public parking facility, and the associated shuttle service and staffing to and from the terminal facility. This was done in anticipation of an especially busy summer traffic season in terms of passenger activity at a time of reduced garage parking due to a months-long construction project. And the third is an interdepartmental change for CPD officers posted at the airport as a part of the Homeland Security mandate. We're projecting this to go over budget because of union wage increases and also an increase in overtime compared to last year. So those are the 3 components for this transfer. And I have Christine Gilmartin here with me, my head of finance, to provide any further clarification should you have questions. Thank you.
Okay. So let me just, couple of things, want to make sure that we understand with this. So this is already there, we just transferred it from one division to the other division.
Through, Mr. Chairman, this is within the Department of Port Control's budget. So we're transferring the funds from savings generated from vacancies from the personnel and related benefits line item to other expenses. And by way of transferring the 4.7 million from personnel to other, the director will have the availability to do the 3 things that he was referring to.
So as always, whenever we hear that, the question that we have is, why didn't we hire those people? And why did we have that $4.7 million savings? And I know some of the tricks of the trade. I hope she's not watching right now, but my former finance director used to catch us when we budgeted more, and then she'll say we had to cut it by 10% in the line item. But by the time I cut the 10%, it is already, I'm cutting fluff. I'm not cutting the bone. And she would catch it. So are we looking to make sure that we didn't just overinflate some of these budgets so that we can do that? I mean, not making any accusations. I just want to make sure either we didn't hire enough people or we intentionally didn't fill those positions because we wanted to save that money. I just be an administrator. I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Chair. So the reality is that we have more vacancies than we would like to have right now. We are actively working with civil service and have made actually quite a bit of progress in the last couple of months to fill a number of the vacancies that we have. We have a number of onboardings that will be occurring over the next few weeks. Within the month of November, about 30 new positions that will be filled. So we're moving in the right direction in that regard. But the reality is that we did have more vacancies than we were anticipating in this budget year. And so that is why those funds are available. If we were able to fill more of those positions sooner, we wouldn't have had this amount of funding available for these purposes.
How many are we down? That's the first question. So how many did we have budgeted and how many do we have actual right now? So how many we are down at the airport?
So there are about 416 total FTEs at the airport, and we are at about 315 or so right now.
So we're down about 101 right
about
now?
About 100 right now, correct. And the way that things are going, again, I mentioned that we have about 30 positions that we'll be filling in the month of November in terms of the onboarding process happening. So we'll be down to about 70, and then through some changes, some modifications and modernizations made through existing classifications as well as some of the exam content for several classifications. We're hoping to have a robust list to work from for 3 of the departments that have a number of vacancies, and we'll then hopefully be able to fill the majority of those vacancies over the next couple of months or so.
And second. Oh yeah, that's one of the things that we want to make sure we understand what those positions are, because I know that we're coming upon snow removal.
Yes.
And those are seasonal positions.
Correct.
Those aren't FTEs, right?
Well, they're included.
They're considered as FTEs?
They're temporary, but
Okay.
yes.
So then that may boost your numbers too, because are you going to be hiring more because we're entering the winter season now?
That's not, even though these are in there, there's just a small number of those seasonal positions. The majority of what I'm speaking of are the full-time permanent positions that we have at the airport.
Can we just make sure we get a list so we can understand? Because I'm really struggling with this whole City of Cleveland narrative that everybody's saying we have positions available. We don't have enough people getting certifications. We don't have enough people in school. And I'm asking the question now, where is everybody?
So
if they're not working in school, getting a certification, I know where they could be, but I don't want to make that assumption. And how do we get them in these jobs? So it's important if you let us know. We may have people that can do janitorial services, that can pass the background check, that can do some of the other maintenance work that you guys have. Because believe me, I know that the airport is judged by its bathrooms, and we watch when we go to those airports. I get a call from Casey whenever he goes to the airport, and I'm calling him about how the bathrooms look. So
understood. Yes, sir.
okay, all right. Did we have? Okay. So if we can get a list of those, that'd be great.
Certainly.
Okay. And where are you pulling this from? What line item? You said just unfilled vacancies, and you're putting them into which line item in your budget?
So it's coming from personnel and related expenses and just
Okay.
going into other expenses, just a different
Just
bucket.
other. So global line, below the line, so contractual, everything else and all of that.
To the
But we
chair,
don't really
yes.
monitor that, so we don't know where that 4.7 could be going towards what now?
Well, Mr. Chair, we're specifying the three areas that we want to
Okay,
use,
okay,
use
all right,
the
just want
funds
to make
for.
sure.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, I must miss that, okay. All right, other than that, do we have any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Hairston.
Through the chair to the director and team, can you make sure once those seasonal positions, the snow removal, the clearance, however you classify them, that we get those so we can help push them out into our communities? So
Certainly.
people can apply for them? Because I know when I reached out last year, because there was someone, I got an email from someone who said he was going to apply, but he couldn't, and the posting was already closed.
Okay.
And I had no idea that it was open and closed.
Through the chair to the councilperson, absolutely, we can ensure that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, last piece of legislation for today. Mr. Gentile, what miscellaneous?
Before you go, can you update us or have somebody update us on where we are with EMS billing?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilperson, the director Abu Nama will be talking shortly with the president of council, give him an update. I'm actually
About that specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that will be handled, and it'll be, if it hasn't happened, it will be happening very shortly.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you so much. All right, last piece of legislation for today, and I apologize, it's capital. Thank you, Mr. Gentile. Ordinance number 1157, I apologize, I wish I would have known earlier that you had this. Ordinance number 1157-2023 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the director of capital projects to employ one or more consultants to provide professional service necessary to rehabilitate the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Bridge, to apply for and accept any gifts or grants for this purpose from any public or private entity, and authorizing the Commissioner of Purchasing and Supplies to acquire, accept, and record for right-of-way purposes any real property and easements necessary to make improvement. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this is to rebuild a bridge that was built around 1900. It's on MLK Boulevard, near where Parkgate Avenue intersects, just north of there. And so the bridge is in poor condition, both the structure and the surface. We did apply for municipal bridge funds, and we received a $2 million award from the state of Ohio. So this would allow us to match it with $1.3 million of road and bridge bonds to move forward with the agreement and to go into the design. Design is expected January through September of 2025. And Rick can get into some more details about the schedule here. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, we're right here.
Yeah.
To the chair, the schedule takes into account in this particular instance the entire duration of it from the RFP, the request for proposals, through the contractual formation, and then the design itself. It's basically a window of opportunity at a point in time. Funds are available in fiscal year 26. That means we get the funds the earliest on July 1st, 2025. So the schedule is set up so that we get the bid out sometime late fourth quarter 25, so that work can start early 26 when the funds are available.
All right. Before I go to Councilman Conwell, I remember Congresswoman Brown having a press conference about this was infrastructure money. Is this part of the infrastructure money, or is this something else?
No, we applied to the small bridge municipal fund.
So this is that stone bridge that goes over MLK?
There's a number of them. This doesn't go, no, that's not the one.
Okay, so
There it
that's the
is.
one she was talking about.
It's this one here, it's Parkgate.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
kind of nondescript, but it's
I know what you're
They're
talking
beautiful,
about.
especially if you see the arches.
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, we've done 4 or 5 now along down.
Okay, got you. Councilman Conwell, this is in your area in Ward 8?
Yeah, Don Brooks underneath, yep.
Yes, Mr. President. The capital projects reached out to me. I approve of it, except one thing. You called me, but where's my name at on the legislation?
About to add it. Can we add Councilman Conwell's name to this legislation? And this is 1157-2023. All right.
When you reach out to me, I always put my name on it when I say yes. All right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman, thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1157-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. That concludes today's Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion meeting. Council will convene at 7 o'clock this evening in the main chambers.
Just for the workers, but also for the employers, for the small business owners across our state. But we cannot remember why we're doing this. I mean, we cannot forget to remember why we're doing this. The sub minimum wage here in Ohio and here in our entire country is a remnant of slavery. And we are all fighting to end